And for anyone out there, there's so many people who are going to struggle, really, really struggle with this issue. And we're seeing the start of that with our customers. Last week, we'd set up a new line for people to contact us. We had 8,000 calls last week alone for people coming through on the number with concerns about ability to pay. And that's us just in the first month, the first few weeks. We haven't seen it come through debt numbers yet, so I can't give you an increase in debt. It's too early for that. But a massive concern from people, a huge amount of anxiety from people on the phones about what they're going to do and the concern they face. And a real worry from them. A lot of people for the first time facing this issue, and they've never been in this position before. All we're doing with people just now is to encourage them to talk to us, to speak to us, because that's the way we can help them. And that's what we need people to do, is to keep contacting us. Like Mr. O'Shea, my biggest concern is actually when we get to October, particularly around the most vulnerable and the poorest, and that tends to match with the people on a prepayment meter. Because as Mr. O'Shea said, actually during the summer their consumption will go down, so their bills will be more manageable. Come October, that's going to get horrific. Truly horrific. And it's got to a stage now where I honestly believe the size and scale of this is beyond what I can deal with. It's beyond what I think this industry can deal with. And I think it needs a massive shift, significant shift in the government policy and approach towards this.
And that's the big question, isn't it? Because someone's going to have to stomach the cost of all of this. And it's either consumers, your companies and their shareholders, or the taxpayer. We've had some announcements from the Chancellor. You mentioned the £200 loan that's repaid by customers. We've got the council tax rebates. We've had confirmation of the extension of the warm homes discount. What more needs to be done? And specifically for those prepayment customers, because we know that the delivery of some of these measures is difficult for them. Is there anything that you think the government should do to help them in particular? Sure.
Thank you. My view now is that this has got to a size and scale where I actually think the government should introduce a deficit fund. I'll explain what I mean about that very briefly. I think it's got to a point now where the government in October, for anybody that's deemed to be in fuel poverty or vulnerable, and that will include prepayment meter customers, £1,000 should be taken off their bill and put into a fund. That fund can then be repaid over a 10-year period. Now, you can spread that across the whole consumer base, or government can partially fund it. But I think the problem's got to the size and scale that it requires something significant of that nature, where for those people who are deemed to be in poverty, fuel poverty, or vulnerable, need something the size and scale that puts their bill back to where it used to be before the gas crisis. You can then spread that over a 10-year period across the rest of the customer base. And then, to me, that's stage one of moving to a social tariff, which is what I think this country needs to have. And we should implement, when we get a bit more stability and a little bit less volatility in the market, the cap should be changed to be a social tariff, targeted to discount the price to people in poverty. Right now, people on a prepayment meter pay more, and that is perverse. And a social tariff should be brought in to discount the price for people in fuel poverty and people in a prepayment, and the cost of that should be borne by those who can afford to pay.